This episode of the Hunt Stealth podcast is brought to you by ReadyWise Outdoor. When you're chasing adventure, you need energy you can count on. ReadyWise Pro Meals are packed with over 30 grams of protein and 500 plus calories per serving to keep you energized no matter the terrain. From the protein-packed breakfast skillet to the Thai coconut cashew curry, these lightweight, freeze-dried meals are ready in minutes. Made in the USA, ReadyWise is built for hunters and explorers just like you. Visit ReadyWiseOutdoor.com and use promo code RYAN20 to save 20% off your next order. Elevate your next adventure with blue coolers from Cata Sports, designed to keep your food and drinks ice cold no matter where the journey takes you. With top-tier insulation, rugged durability, and built-in wheels for easy transport, these coolers are the ultimate sidekick for all of your outdoor adventures. Best of all, they deliver unbeatable performance at a price that won't break the bank. Head on over to catasports.com and use promo code RYAN10 to save 10% off your order.
You're listening to the Hunt Stealth Podcast with Ryan Uffens, the podcast where we dive headfirst into the wild. Whether you're an aspiring hunter or an adventurer seeking the untamed, together we'll explore the strategies and stories that lead to success in the great outdoors.
We got our technical difficulties all worked out here. I am your host, Ryan Uffens. We've got Jaxon Uffens here, and we've got the Dread Pirate Harbertson joining us today here on the Hunt Stealth Podcast. Jordan, thanks for being here with us.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
So we're going to sit down and talk with Jordan a little bit. Jordan is the founder of Black Flag. He was one of the original co-founders of MTN OPS, and we're going to talk a little bit about the hunting industry today. And maybe just share a little bit about your background and what led you to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll kind of catch everybody up that's listened to the cast on me, give you kind of the ESPN top 10 plays, if you will. Been an entrepreneur since I was 8 years old. First business I ever started was basketball, baseball cards that I used to wrap in brown lunch sacks and tape and put $1 on it. And I'd sit on the corner and I would literally, we're drinking pink lemonade, revenge, but I would compete against the girls up the street that were selling lemonade. And so I was like, they're selling lemonade, so I need to be different. So I ended up selling cards that I had acquired and would wrap up and resell all my duplicates. And so my dad actually owned a card shop. And so I used to make extra money and earn money so I could buy packs of cards from him. And I was always trying to get Michael Jordans, right? I was always chasing the GOAT.
Keep the good ones.
Yeah. And then the duplicates, you put them back in. And I remember photocopying this sign. And what I would do is I'd wait till about 4 o'clock in the day, right before dads had come home, and they'd drive by and I'd just sell packs. And it was like my first experience of like understanding and learning like the hustle. That transitioned into many small little businesses throughout elementary and junior high, and little hustles that I'd sell my friends on and make a buck here or there. And I got to a point when I was 14 that I got an opportunity to get mentored in graphic design, essentially, and start working for a marketing agency. So at a very young age, I got kind of introduced to what became my love of like designing and creating things. And so I worked in the outdoor industry at a young age because we worked on brands like Easton and Realtree and Browning and Hoyt and Benelli. Like we had all these brands that we used to oversee as part of the marketing firm that I worked for. And so I started as a graphic designer, grew myself up into a marketing director there. And then I ended up leaving and serving a mission for my church for 2 years in New York City when I was 19 years old. And when I was out in New York City, it was insane because everything that I had experienced here in Utah, right, which is just totally different than New York City. You go to the epicenter of marketing and advertising.
Get sent to the concrete jungle.
Literally in the concrete jungle, walking the streets of New York with everyone from everywhere, the melting pot of the world. And then being like advertised like in Times Square and like seeing all this was really inspiring. So I come home and I just had a desire. I always had a desire to start my own business. So I ended up going back to the firm I worked for, but had just a eager desire to start my own thing. So I ended up convincing my brother Casey to leave the family business, which was my dad's business with his brother, the Harbertson brothers, that started. Literally, the name of their business was THB, which stood for the Harbertson Brothers Incorporated, nuts and bolts, down in North Salt Lake. And they were a premier fastener company that did custom fab. They did prefab. They serviced all kinds of different, all the Spalding and Lifetime basketball hoops. They did all the kits for those. all the Icon fitness equipment. They did all their fabrication. And so they did all this cool stuff that growing up, it just wasn't my passion. And so that's why I pursued, design and marketing. And eventually I convinced Casey, who was an incredible artist and also somebody who was really great at sales and had a great desire for design as well, to do something on the side together. So we did that on the side. And that was when we started moonlighting together and doing side projects. And just because I wasn't honestly as fulfilled at my job as I had been before, because it was just, I was getting to a point in my life where I was 21, I was young, I was hungry to go do it myself, but I was working for my mentor, and my mentor didn't want to do anything different than what he had done in his career. And so this was to give context, this is in 2009. And so this is right when we've just gotten through MySpace, right? With good old Tom, and our I think it was top 8 or whatever. You'd pick your friends and all your other friends weren't cool, which is a terrible way to do social media. He knows nothing about this. Is before Jackson's time. MySpace, you have your theme song, that was and then Facebook was in the colleges, right? And I remember seeing it for the first time at my buddy's dorm room down in BYU. And now I'm experiencing the wall or whatever your wall of posts on Facebook as I've come home from my mission, and I'm this is wild. This is connecting people in a way that MySpace was doing, but just totally different, right? The feed and everything. So anyways, when it became mainstream, when they opened it up out of the colleges to everyone else, and everyone else now could get an account, and you didn't have to have a college email, I got right into trying to learn social media and what this thing was. And Casey the same. And so when we started actually our own marketing firm, we got one client that gave us a shot. There's a local company called Castle Creek Homes here in Davis County. Mike Schultz, actually, who's now the Speaker of the House in Utah here. Casey and I totally went in and pitched them a game that we didn't even know how to play. I mean, we over pitched the game. We went in and told them we're going to rebrand your company. We're going to market you this way, blah, blah, blah. And we sold them the world, and we didn't even know how to build half of it, but they bought the pitch. And so immediately I was now we got to figure out how to do this. And so Casey and I went right into learning and creating and designing and crafting, and we blew it up for those guys. So this is 2008, we have the crash. 2009, we're starting this. So 2000 is when we started really getting going with Castle Creek Homes. And at the time they were only doing how many homes did they build? They were doing maybe 40 homes a year. After the first year with us, they did 140 homes the next year. And then the year after that, they did 300 homes.
Fake it till you make it, baby.
Yeah. And we learned in real time and on an opportunity that we took a full grip of how to market a home builder. And so we learned how to do this. And my prior mentor that I had left, because he wasn't necessarily eager to learn digital commerce or to learn social media or even .com. He was just dude, we do catalogs, we do TV, we do radio, stuff really well. He was I don't want to do this new thing. And so that was all of his clients then became mine because he went out of business. And it was actually really hard to see my mentor, who had kind of groomed me, taught me how to become what I became, to see him kind of go out of business. And so a lot of those clients, Easton and some of these brands that were in the outdoor space that I had grown up helping and learning from, as well as helping to build, now I was doing it, but for my own company. And so quickly, Casey and I, we went from home builders and lawyers and all these other trades professions, marketing, to outdoor marketing exclusive. We were hey, we just want to market for outdoor brands. And quickly we became successful at learning how to help build social media followings and start social media pages for these companies that were so holistically retail only. And so we would develop their websites. We would build at the time it was WooCommerce. Everybody's familiar with Shopify now, but WooCommerce was the thing back then. And Casey and I really started to learn quickly how to help a brand transition from being just a retail brand that's subject to retail traffic of customers and success, to saying you can own your own destiny by omni-channel, by dually creating an opportunity to sell at retail and sell direct to your customers. And so with all that success that we had and all the things that we were learning and creating and growing and experiencing in real time, the one thing that became apparent to Casey and I was that we weren't really soul fulfilled, and we couldn't understand why. I remember having deep conversations with Casey and saying, I think this is my dream. I wanted to start a business. You know, I love marketing and building brands and building communities. Like, we're doing it, but the process of an agency is pretty atrocious, because if you're good, then you build a company up to success. And with that success, they do the right thing by hiring an internal team to hire you out.
Right.
And so you basically build yourself out of a job every time you're successful with a client. It's just a vicious cycle.
I've seen it. My full-time job, that's what I do. You work with somebody, you get them up, you get them cooking, and then they go either hire a bigger agency who has a different idea, maybe not a better idea, or like you said, what you're seeing now is internal. The thing that's out there right now is like these private equity firms. Like, they're going and gobbling up companies, and these companies that had this great success, it's just like cut out. Like, you're out the door, you're on your own, you're back, you know.
They have their guys.
They have their guys. They have their own, especially these private equity firms. Like, they have their internal teams that they just plug into whatever group they go and overtake. So, yeah, I could see that. I could see how, you know, it correlates, especially into the outdoor space. So the more success you guys have, the less job opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, it was fascinating, because at that time, you know, this is kind of between 2010 and 2014. That span, we had just incredible success. That was right when Facebook and Instagram is now purchased by Facebook, open algorithm. There's no restrictions. So everything you're posting, everyone's seeing. And it was just this wild west of social media. And we were right at the forefront and cusp of it and learning it. And as they started to put boundaries on it and started to put these restrictions, Casey and I were learning how to break out the algorithms and how to create things that would get past them and get around them, so you could keep generating more interest and eyeballs and, you know, impressions and conversions. And so I looked at Casey and I was like, dude, this sucks in terms of, like, we're doing a good job. Like, I remember one client was Vortex Optics. Casey and I started their Instagram page and social media. At the time, the family that's running Vortex Optics, they had been solely retail. And the idea of direct was like foreign, and like, I don't know if we can do that. We'll make our retailers mad. And we were like, no, like, you can do this. And the other thing we taught them was, why don't you guys put more emphasis on your merchandise? Why is in your catalog, like, t-shirts and hats, like the last thing that you do? Why isn't that the first thing that you do? Why aren't you thinking of your shirts and your hats like billboards and getting those out to customers with every purchase they make and every optics they buy? So we put a whole plan together for Vortex, and obviously it was widely successful. I mean, they became one of the leaders. They had their VIP warranty that helped them, but they focused heavily on consumers directly and how to make them crusaders for their brand. And so when we helped write that playbook for them, they took that, had success. We weren't doing the work for them anymore. They hired an internal team. And that's when I looked at Casey and I said, we got to do something different. We've really got to figure out, I think the answer to this question is, we've got to do it for ourselves. We've got to stop doing it for other people. And I always tell people this on agency work, and I'm going to offend some people that maybe you own an agency. So I'm sorry if I do, but I'm also not sorry, because if you're good at what you do, you're good enough to do it for yourself. And so that's where I'm always conscious with agencies. And I tell people, be careful working with agency, because you get fractional work and you get fractional attention, because their job as an agency, which I've run one, is to distribute all their time between as many clients they have. And obviously the money maker is, the more clients you have, the more money you make, but the less time you have to give attention on each one of those clients. Unless you have one big money-making client, that's also a risk, because when you lose them, now you got to go find replacement for that, and you could lose guys or lose girls and lose people on your team. So it's a vicious business. It can be very rewarding, but that's when Casey and I sat down and we started ideating, and we literally went from like going out and trying to sell and get more clients to, let's build a product, or let's build a business. What is that going to be? We knew where we wanted it to be. The outdoor industry. We love the outdoor industry. Like, raised in the outdoors. Dad took us there every year. We hunted with Dad, deer, elk, big game. Casey went on a fun buffalo hunt with my dad and the Henrys. And like, that was fishing, camping. That was like how me and Casey were raised. We were raised in the outdoors. So authentically, it was a space that we loved and adored because of our father's passion for it that also came onto us. So we started looking at it and saying, okay, what could we do and what could we build? And interestingly enough, this is kind of where we get to the chapter 2 of like, okay, the Harbertson brothers now are wanting to start their own business in terms of like a product business in the outdoors. And we had a neighbor, and I had worked with this gentleman. In fact, this is a guy that you should get on your podcast, because he could tell you stories. Because we want to talk about a guy who's been in the industry and built merchandise for just about everyone in it. His name's Peter Miller. and he works for Incentives West. And Peter Miller him and I had known each other for years when I was working at Corsetti Marketing and before we started our own. So all of our clients were getting all their merchandise and apparel done from him. And while we were talking to him one day, he had mentioned he has a neighbor who had like a doctor chiropractor supplement business and was doing B2B and needed some help. So Casey and I got together, we went and met with the individual, and we could see immediately, we're like, there's so many things that we could help you with. And our mindset was always, if you want a return on your investment, we'll basically give you a plan. This is what it will cost. And we'll ask you politely to step out of the way and let us do our job. You know, if you're hiring me to do the work, this is what was always frustrating in an agency was, if you're hiring me to do the work and then you're telling me how to do my work, why did you hire me? Then why don't you do it yourself? So we just became very upfront with clients or potential clients of saying, as brothers, we've learned how to do this successfully. We've learned how to create direct response, and using the tools that are now available with social media and websites and all these things, we can generate sales quickly with our methods. So we did just that. We went to him and we told him the amount of money to give us. We told him what we we're going to do and what we would return back. And I remember within the first 2 months, we took 1 month to rebrand, reskin, and redo and refresh his whole website and direct to consumer play, because he had it, but he was doing B2B, and that's where he was making his money. He wasn't making much money online. And we went and executed our plan. And within the first month from when we implemented, we doubled and did as many sales in 1 month as he had done in his whole year of B2B. And within the second month, we had doubled what he had done the prior 2 years in his entire business. And so by month 3, he looked at us and was like, I have never seen, I've worked with marketers, I've worked with guys. They pitch a good game, they tell me they can do this, and then with 6 months, it doesn't happen. I fire them and you look for a new one, right? It's like the 6-month rotation. Because I've never seen somebody actually do exactly what they say they do, and in such fashion. He literally looked at Casey and I was like, I'm just going to ask the question, but do you guys know anywhere else that nutritional products could be made or could be manufactured or created for in a market that maybe isn't the traditional saturated, gym space? So Casey will get all the credit for this. Casey, I remember sitting in that meeting with our then going to be future partner, and Casey literally looked at him and said, you know what? I think the outdoors is a perfect space that we could build nutritional products for. And what was interesting, this is a fun fact. Interesting enough, Chris Denham, who was the owner and still owner of Wilderness Athlete, and Mark Peterson, who had started the company before it had gone bankrupt twice before Chris bought it. We had just met with Chris 6 months before this all happened and pitched Wilderness Athlete on actually doing what we then did and created for Mountain Ops. And he turned us down. And this is no dig to Chris. Chris at the time, 2 brothers, like, I don't know who you are. Second, I have my daughter and my family that were running our media company because they had Western Hunter magazine, Western Hunter TV show. He had Outdoorsman product brand that he had built. And Chris had been very successful in the outdoor space and still today is very successful. And so interesting enough, like 6 months later, we literally start creating what then will become Mountain Ops. And I still remember leaving the office that day with Casey, going back to what was our office in Sandy, and we were at the Craig Swap building. So if anybody knows Utah and you're going down I-15, one call, that's all, guy. Yeah, Craig Swap building at 90th. I think it's 90th South.
Yeah.
That's where our office was at. And we were there because we had another partner that was down in Saratoga Springs. So we kind of made a middle ground between Saratoga and like we were up here in Davis County. And I remember going back and we got on the board, and this is where you come in, because it was Casey and we love Vikings. And I always tell everyone that you remind me of Viking lore, and you like look like a Viking. And
I got the ancestry DNA to prove it.
And it literally is within your blood.
78% Nordic. Yeah.
So we come back, and literally I remember looking at Casey and I'm like, Casey, I think this is our opportunity. I don't want, and I'm not interested in creating what he invited us to do as a client. I want to make a business with this guy, and let's do this together. Let's build this. So we ideated and we started to write all these Viking different names because we wanted to come up with a cool, unique name. So we did like, hunting and what that meant in Norse and what that meant in, like Viking. And so we started drafting all these names. couldn't find anything that we really loved. And I remember sitting there with Casey and with Joel, and we're sitting there, and I had gone home that night. And one of the things that you guys should know that I love is I love Mountain Dew, and it's my favorite drink. And I grew up nostalgically drinking it and being inspired by it because it was just a cool drink and extreme sports and lifestyle. So when I was trying to think of the name of the company, I was like, I want it to be like Mountain Dew. And so I went and I just started researching, like, you know what? It's outdoors, it's mountains. So like maybe there's something mountain that I can put after it that's also short and simple. And so I came up with Mountain Ops. And I still remember when I came up with it. I went and searched it up, and it used to be owned by a guy who owned Snowboard Magazine in Idaho. The trademark and the name had expired, and so it was open. And so I remember I got so excited that night. I was like, dude, I think I've figured out the name of the company. And so I came back to Casey and Joel in our Craig Swap building office, and I sat there with them, and I said, I think I've got the name. And I said it to him. I said, it's Mountain Ops. And I said, this is how we're going to spell it too. MTN OPS, acronym. And Casey was like, dude, that's cool. How'd you come up with that? I was like, dude, we both love Mountain Dew. Like every successful hunt ends with a cold, brisk Mountain Dew can. Like that's our thing. Like Casey and I would always drink Mountain Dews to celebrate our success on the mountain. And so I was like, let's do Mountain Ops. And what's cool about it is the MTN mountain, we get it. The OPS, mountain operations, which is traditionally what ski, companies or resorts use. They call those groups that go out mountain operators, or so mountain operations. But I said, what we're going to build helps an individual operate on a mountain, but also OPS could stand for outdoor performance supplements, right? Because we're going to create a new category. I mean, there was a wilderness athlete who kind of started the category, but we're really going to go create the category. We're going to go dominate it. And so instantly it was like, let's do this. So credit goes to actually a gentleman named Joel Pilcher, who was our partner at the time, of creating the icon. So Joel actually created the M&O shield that everybody knows now today, that people would call the Optimus Prime logo, or the Chevron gas station logo, now the Mountain Ops logo. And so even some people don't even know that's an M and an O. They just think it's a shield. But Joel created that. I remember this is true story, when he first showed that, I didn't like it. I was like, no, at the time I was kind of inspired by a company called ProBar. And all ProBar was 6 letters in a square, and it was super simple. And they let their packaging and their marketing kind of like paint the canvas. Sure. But I got outvoted by Casey and Joel, and I'm glad I did, because that shield became iconically what everybody now knows as Mountain Ops. And we started it in 2014. And from 2014 to 2020, that 6-year span was one of the most insane, wild rides of my life. We came in and absolutely flipped the market and flipped the entire industry on its head. And we used everything that we knew and learned before that moment to apply to what we did. And so I really wanted to build Mountain Ops to be the Red Bull of the outdoor industry. I wanted it to be like Mountain Dew, Red Bull, these iconic brands and consumable brands that I adored. I wanted to be influenced into what we did at Mountain Ops. And so Casey and I built a very strategic plan that was very intentional. And with a little bit of luck and a little bit of opportunity, we grabbed it all and we ran with it. And we went from zero to hero very fast. And
I'd say it was more than a little luck and a little opportunity. I mean, I know you guys grind nonstop. So there was a lot of hard work that was put into it.
Sacrifice, 100%.
So
like, I always tell people, because they're like, dude, when you look back at those years, like, how did you guys do it? And I'm like, a lot of sacrifice, a lot of long hours. And every idea we had, it was all art then. A lot of what we were doing, because I always tell people there's a pendulum that swings in business between art and science. And art is where you discover and explore new things that you have never done before. And as soon as you've proven them to be successful, you move them into the science column. Now they're proven. Now it's science. And so a lot of companies become so scientific that they don't innovate anymore, and they rely heavily on their laurels and their beliefs of what they used to be artistic about. And now they're just scientific. They're just like, oh, it's proven if we do this. And they kind of end up falling out, or they lose market attrition, or they lose market traction, and they lose like relevancy. And so Casey and I, even to this day, we've always operated art and science. And as soon as we move it over to the science column, We get it in a way that it can start to be implemented and executed. And then we go right back to innovating, creating, and exploring and learning. And I think that's been the key. That was the key to our success, is everything that we did during those years was all exploratory. And now what's interesting about the industry is we did become the category king quickly. We built out the category. And what has been so inspiring to me that I've loved about what we accomplished as a team together with Mountain Ops, with everybody that was a part of that, is Mountain Ops has literally inspired a whole new segment in the community of a healthy outdoor athlete. And that really wasn't common, I mean, Cameron Haynes was really more the godfather, if you will, of someone who was against the grain, trying to get someone to run, lift, shoot. And he was being made fun of for it. Like, how do muscles help you become a better hunter? How does being fit, like, it's trucks, bucks, and beer. Like, it's totally against the grain, right? And so Cameron, I think, gets a lot of credit, because I became close to him through the Easton days together when I was at Easton, and watching him do what he did, he played a very big role in Mountain Ops, because when I brought him on in year 2 of the company, this is a cool story. No one's actually heard this story. Only Cam and I know the story. And that year, Oregon Ducks were in the very first college football playoff when they instituted it. Mm-hmm. Cameron is a huge college football fan. Casey and I go to SHOT Show. And at SHOT Show that year, this is in 2014 or 2015, SHOT Show of 2015, we go to the SHOT Show. And my goal is I'm going to make sure I connect with 2 people, Eva Shockey and Cameron Haynes. And I've also got a mass list of everybody else I want to connect with. But I'm like, I want to go get a guy who I truly believe embodies everything that we're going to stand for as a company, and a woman who also the same. And also 2 of the most significant, most influential people in the space. And so for the outdoor TV award show, where they give out the Moose Awards, I had been talking to Eva Shockey before the show, had gotten her some product, and then her and I connected at the show. And me and Casey met her on, I still remember this is right, everyone's coming out, Eva's coming, and she's with Jim. And I just walked up to her and I said, hey, and Casey and I are wearing our black hats with the big vibrant orange logo, so you couldn't miss us. And she was like, you're Jordan. And I was like, yeah, I'm Jordan. We've been talking, how'd you like the product? And Eva was like, I love it. This is amazing. Like, what you guys are doing, like, I would love to be a part of it. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, how about, do you have any time tomorrow on the floor at the SHOT Show that you and I could sit down and meet at like one of the booths and talk? We ended up talking, having a great conversation. She got on brand early with us, and she became a dear friend of my wife and I's, her and Brent and their kids. Amazing person, and a super huge part of the success of Mountain Ops and getting the right people on the team at the right time. And I met Cameron at the Sportsman's Outdoor TV Show Award after party. And I'll actually never forget that, because the reason why the tie-in of the Oregon Ducks was, I told Casey that night, I said, I'm going to go find Cameron Haynes, and I'm going to meet with him, and we're going to get him on Mountain Ops' brand. I remember I was standing there with Casey, and we were listening to, Ryan, who's the guy? I always forget his name, but he's the Ted Nugent. Okay. Oh, yeah. You know, old Teddy, yeah. Uncle Teddy. So Uncle Teddy that night actually was going off. He was crazy. He was on stage, and anybody who was in 2015 will remember this. He went off the rails with his speech at the after party. It was crazy. He's a very entertaining person. And Ted was given this crazy speech, doing these crazy things on stage. And I'm standing there with Casey, and we're just talking. And all of a sudden, I look to my left, and Cameron Haynes is standing right next to me. And I remember I just looked at Cameron, and I just said, hey, Cam. And he just looked at me and said, hey, man. I mean, Cameron's just always just short, simple, like a man of few words, very humble guy. And I looked at him and I said, hey, how about them Ducks? And that sparked a conversation. Him and I talked the whole night. And at the time he was with Complete Nutrition, which is a brand that he was signed with, but I had heard that he was going to be leaving them and wasn't very satisfied. And so that night I talked to Cameron and I said, hey, Cam, I would love to get you some of our product. I really think, I said, I don't know if you remember me. I think I remember you the Easton days. Yeah, when we used to do stuff together back then. And I ended up that next day sending him a whole kit of our system. And the next day I remember getting a text from Cam being like, dude, I really like this stuff. I really like what you guys are about, what you're going to do. Let's figure this out. And so it was like that first year of the company that I still remember the SHOT Show because that was the SHOT Show that I met. I actually met Ted Nugent, got him on the brand. I got Levi Morgan, like Brian Call Gritty, Corey Jacobson. Like, we built the all-star Avengers of the outdoor industry at Mountain Ops. Truly the best promoters and influencers you could ever imagine having. We convinced within year one to promote this little thing called Mountain Ops that nobody at that time really knew anything about. And it was a big part of what our entire plan was that we executed with all these partnerships and relationships that I give so much gratitude. And I'm very thankful for every one of them. And I wish I could name every single one of them in this podcast, but the most success that anyone can ever have in their business, in their life, is with who they're doing it with. That's a fact. Like, you got to be thoughtful about who you surround yourself with. And so at that time, early in the business, we surrounded ourselves with the right people. And what we found was, within our culture, within our brand, within our ethos, and with what we were doing at Mountain Ops, we started to attract who we were. And so working with people who you are like-minded with becomes effortless and easy. And so that was a big recipe for success for us, with all the sacrifice, all the hustle, all the heart, all the energy that we were putting into it early on, with some of the fun things we did then. And so going to from there to 2020, it was just a skyrocket of success, where we really changed the way the industry thought about influencers, ambassadors, and social media, and how to use it to build a brand. We led that. We were teaching. I remember getting calls from all these CEOs that were calling Mountain Ops, calling me and Casey, asking for advice. Like Leopold, Bruce, calling me up saying, "Hey, you guys seem to be the fun kid at the dance. Like, how does Leopold benefit from a partnership with you?" And we created a strategic partnership that we would help more than 100-year-old brand Leopold now understand how Leopold could start to utilize social media and influence, like, and ambassadors and programs to be successful. And we did that with all our partnerships. Adam Weatherby, a dear friend of mine. I love Adam. Like, Weatherby Rifle has been around for ages. Him and I are sitting down. Jordan, how can Weatherby, and our partnerships was about how we could share what we knew and learned with others, and be able to help everyone rise a tide that rose all ships, and that mindset. And so that was also a big success, and part of our success was our partnerships, our brand partnerships, our relationships in the industry at large. Lots of stuff out. I know that's a lot. Sorry guys, I'm a big storyteller, but that gets you up to like the Mountain Ops days, right? There's so much that's within that.
So let me ask you this question, Jordan. With your expertise in the outdoor space, and I by no means consider myself an outdoor influencer, and I'm not even an outdoor influencer, an influencer in general. That's not me. Like, we're doing this podcast because I think that there's a hole to be filled, and I want to talk to everybody that has like hunting experience, and whether you're Cameron Haynes or whether you're Nick, right, who we're going to have on the podcast next week, somebody who has great hunting experience but is relatively new in the hunting space. Like, we want to create a platform for people to share the stories where like-minded people can come together and grow. So with all that being said, where do you think some influencers are maybe missing the mark
in the industry? What's interesting, so one of my favorite idols and icons that I adore to this day, and you go up to my office, and I've actually got one of his he did not sign a lot of things, and I got his signature on a document that he signed right before he died. And I've been chasing that signature from him for years. It's Steve Jobs from Apple. And Steve Jobs was such an inspiring person to me because of his belief and what he built into Apple. A lot of what he did, I kind of took, and I tried to build that into like Mountain Ops. And I'm doing that now with Black Flag.
I can see that.
He's very inspiring. He inspired a rebellion, right? He went against everything that the industry believed. IBM, Microsoft, business at large, right? So I'm going to use this in tangent or in concert with the outdoor industry. So you look at like what Jobs did with Apple and how he created a computer that could be used at home instead of at the office. That was how revolutionary that was at that time. And the way that his operating system was developed and built was so beautiful, so elegant, so simple, that the complexity of the business operating system, Windows, built into hardware like IBM, these things at that time. He created an entire movement that completely changed the course of humanity at large and the tech industry at large. And his belief was always too that within product, within brand, within everything that you do as a company, if you aren't a good storyteller, no one's going to listen and no one's going to really care about your product or what you're doing. And so in life, it's so important that he spoke deeply about how important it is to be a good storyteller and how to share and tell stories. And if you look at the history of Apple, the way that he could articulate, the way he would tell stories about how he created product or how he did things, he was so good at it. And that moved people to want to follow him or to be part of what he was, a part of what he was creating. And so when you look at life, all of us individually, this is what's interesting is you look at Mountain Ops and you say, okay, here's a brand, here's a company, here's a name, here's a place. Okay, pull that back. Every single person, the three of us sitting at this table, we're all a brand. We're all a business. We're our own business. We take care of our own business, right? NIL, name, image, and likeness. Everyone has it. Everyone has a name. I'm going to correlate this now to my trip that I just came back from Italy. If I was to ask either one of you if you knew the last name of Michelangelo, could you tell it to me? But you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. Okay. So that's what's fascinating about one's namesake and one's personal brand is one's ability to build a namesake or a brand around their own name. And that's why our last names are so important because of the history of where they come from and who they came from. Like I'm Harbert's son, which is the son of Harbert, way back when my family line started. And that's how usually the sons were at the end of names. Like there's a lot of sons of John in this world, not very many sons of Harbert, but Michelangelo, one of the most renowned sculptors and artists and the guy who influenced the Renaissance era. Nobody knows his last name, but if I say Michelangelo, you know everything that he did, the David, the sculptures he made, the painting of the Sistine Chapel, like so iconic, so influential, and so generationally, impactful that we even today, thousands of years later, still remember his name. And so when you look at your name,
you even think of him over the Ninja Turtle Michelangelo.
Yeah, I mean TMNT, dude. Like I grew up on Ninja Turtles, like Raphael, Leonardo, Michelangelo, like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, right? All the artist names. Even as you're going through Sistine Chapel, they show you the painting of Raphael.
Right.
Everybody knows Raphael. And Raphael was pissed at Michelangelo because he's like, he stole my idea. Like that's a real thing. Like when he did the Sistine Chapel, and that was such a revolutionary painting because medieval art was so plain and emotionless. And the Renaissance era was all about emotion and feeling. And Raphael was a part of that movement. There's many artists that were, but the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which honestly is a huge part of mine and Casey's like growing up and a huge part of my childhood. What I'm trying to get at is that your name can be your brand. And so how did Michelangelo become Michelangelo? Well, not only was he really good at something, the stories that were told about him is what preceded him and the way in which he was able to articulate himself when he was selling his own work. There's a really cool story about Michelangelo where Michelangelo, this is a really cool fact for everybody to learn. Michelangelo, when he was young, 14, similar to when I was 14 and started in design, Michelangelo started in sculpting in Florence, Italy. And they had their school there where they started at very young ages to become sculptors. Going through his career into his 30s is when he did the David, right? That's when like the most iconic and most beautiful marble sculpture of humankind was created. Witnessing it myself was incredible. I mean, not a blemish on that thing other than, there's some of the deterioration, some of the things that happened to it, but he took what was the most coarse and ugly piece of marble that no other artist wanted to sculpt and sculpted the David out of it. And one mistake, one single miss chisel, you throw it away. And he completed that beginning to end with no mistakes. And you have one of the most beautiful pieces of art. And so that created for himself a brand as one of the most notorious and sought after sculptors in all of Europe. And so the popes, Pope Caesar, I think it was Pope Caesar II. I could be wrong, so you can fact check me on this, but relative to the Pope line, wanted him to come and sculpt his burial site. All of them wanted to have big shrines. Here's the crazy thing. When I talked earlier about being a marketer, a designer, you hire me to do the work and then you tell me how to do the work. That's what happened to Michelangelo. It was like, as I was listening to the story, I was like, this is my life back then. It was like the Pope, like, I want you to build me the most beautiful David-like experience. I want it to be illustrious, beautiful. I want when I'm dead, people to come and when they worship my site and see me, remember me in a big way. So he submits the plans to him. And he's like, I don't want this. And Michelangelo's like, I'm Michelangelo. Like, do you realize who you're talking to? Like, you asked me to design your shrine. Now you're telling me you don't like it. So they went back and forth for years. The church paid Michelangelo a large sum of money. Okay. That large sum of money that they paid him, they held over him in debt that he never actually did the shrine for the Pope. And so because he never did it, when he was in his late 60s and 70s, they asked him to come back and pay the Sistine Chapel as payment for what he owed the church. You got to remember this, though. Mo is the notorious sculptor. Obviously, we look at his paintings like, guy's a really great painter, too.
Yeah.
But if you know what the Sistine Chapel is, it's a dome, kind of curved. Homeboy at 70 years old, neck twisted, is painting. And when I was standing in the Sistine Chapel looking at that work of art, I sat there with my wife and we talked about what we're talking about right now, about like personal brands. And I said to her, you know what's so crazy about Michelangelo is like you say his name and you know exactly who it is I'm talking about. And so if I'm going to pull all that, again, I'm taking you guys on a path. So we kind of went this way. I'm giving you some history and I'm giving you some context around Steve Jobs, Michelangelo, these icons and titans of history. I'm pulling it back to say that all these guys were simple people. Okay, Steve Jobs was just a kid in California that had an idea and met Woz in a garage, and Woz was the brains. Jobs knew how to sell the story, build the brand, be a storyteller, and became Steve Jobs and Apple. Michelangelo was a simple, humble 14-year-old kid among other young kids sculpting, but became the sculptor of the David, the sculptor of many beautiful works of art, and changed the way art was done and influenced the way the Renaissance became the Renaissance. They all started simple people. So a guy like Nick, who you're going to meet with next week, who is a dear friend of mine who I love and adore. And I'm excited that he's going to get a platform to share his story and be able to tell it. And you're going to allow him to do that. Every one of us can tell a story. What I'm seeing right now in the industry, that's a little disenfranchising to me, to be completely honest with you. And I'll say this, I'm going to offend some of you because there's in every industry, in every community, like there's extremes. I'll call them like, you've got like ISIS members of industries, like extremists, like guys that want to blow you up.
Sure.
Yeah. And you've got guys that are like not extreme, right? Maybe on the fringe, maybe they're in, they're out. Right. And so I'm going to say this in full belief of what I'm seeing and what I feel like is missing. I feel like the stories that we're telling aren't that interesting. And they're not interesting because they're not relatable. And the reason why they're not relatable is the influencers in the outdoor industry that literally are fortunate enough, like my good friend Eric Chesser and Hush, who have literally built a business that allows him to be compensated so that every day he can go do that. He built that just like I built a business. Eric Chesser literally went out, sacrificed everything, started YouTube when nobody was doing it, and built a business, a successful business now with his partners, Brian and Casey Hush, in the industry. And they were a huge part of Mountain Ops' success early on as a partner with us. And so that lifestyle is not that it's not obtainable because they obtained it, but it's probably less than 1% of the industry that will ever experience that. So most guys aspire to that. Most ladies aspire to that. And so what they do is they share on their social media outlets almost every day as if they are outdoors every day dressed in camo hunting. And you can't do that unless you're like these influencers who truly get paid and they've built their life that way. But if you're somebody that has a 9-to-5 job, blue collar, building a life, trying to save up and do something meaningful, you might on average get to hunt 14 days a year. And those are usually weekends because you don't get to work. You got to work weekdays. And so I think what's really missing contextually in the industry and within the community is there's a lack of intentional, genuine, authentic storytelling. I'm very interested, and people are becoming more curious because of social media, and it's getting even bigger with TikTok and all the changes with Instagram. People are getting far more curious about what a person does almost every day, or what their lifestyle is like, or like who they are. And it's less about what industry they're in and what they're doing, and it's more about what they do every day. And so I think what's missing is that everyday part is we're promoting and showing a lifestyle, that to the majority is completely unobtainable. Not everybody can go hunting 365. And so to try and inspire people on the fringe or on the outside or show that, it's also not inspiring to them that you do that every day. So when the hunting community is like, we're under attack, we need more support, we need to get non-hunters to become hunters. Okay, well then connect with them on a level that's more relatable. Like those people that don't hunt, guarantee you they ride bikes, they maybe go surfing, maybe they go snowboarding, maybe they do motocross. They might do all these other hobbies and activities.
They might even do their own yard work.
They might even do their own yard work. Yeah. I mean, they could do gardening. Yeah. Right? They have hobbies and interests and likes that aren't that. That could become one they might pursue, but the idea that that's all they'll ever do, I don't know is as attractive to them as it might be to someone who's really with it. Right.
Well, that's exactly right. Like for me personally, and I mean, I can't speak for you, but I don't want to be hunting 365 days a year. Like I love it. You know, I've been hunting for 4 years. It's still haven't killed any big game. And I look forward to the day that I am able to, but I'm still looking forward to going boating, going dirt biking, you know, and preparing for the hunts in the fall. And, you know, you hit it earlier too, but all of these other influencers in the hunting industry and the other podcasts, they have a platform for the top dogs, the Cam Hanes, the Donnie Vincents and everything. And yeah, it's great to have those people on. But where we're trying to really connect with the everyday person is the people that have the stories that aren't big in the space. You know, you have people that don't have followings, and some of those people have the best stories and the most relatable events or experiences that they had. And that's ultimately what we want to do with this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that when we sit down with people, like I tell guys, are like, I've never done a podcast before. Like, I don't know. I'm like, bro, take your time. Imagine that we're sitting around a campfire and we've got all the time in the world because we're going to go to bed here in a couple hours and we're going to get up and go hunt again. And tell me the story, you know, and to be honest, like I have to give credit to Donnie Vincent. The first podcast that I did is he shared a little bit about his storytelling methodology. And he said that people want to go on a journey with you. They want to hear the story. So tell them about like the dew that's on the grass the morning that you wake up. And just, yeah, I mean, storytelling is what made America, America. And it's what, I mean, you talked about the book of Steve Jobs and all these other people and the history that you've gone and done. And everyone has a story. And that's what we're wanting to do is like be able to let everyone have a platform to share their story. I want to hear from the Cam Hanes. I'd love to have him on the podcast. I'd love to hear from like Ava Shockey. I mean, I'd love to have Eric Chester on and talk with him about the stuff that they're doing at Hush and how they're going. But I also want to talk to just like the everyday guy that only gets to go out maybe one weekend.
Yeah.
And
it depends on what kind of hall pass that you've been issued or been given that your wife or significant other or vice versa has allowed you to say, hey, you know what? Like, you can go out for a couple weekends.
Yeah.
But here's what I love about the industry. That level of passion, that is what during those mountain ops years, that's what I adore and still this day love so much about this community. So when I say I might offend someone because you don't understand where I'm coming from when I say what I'm saying, which is I think that we're not doing a good job telling our own stories. That's what I'm saying. As an individual and as an industry, everybody could tell a story about a hunt. That happens, right? But when we're granularly breaking that down to an individual level like we are, how can individuals begin to start telling their story more that's beyond hunting? Because there is more to life than hunting. And that is a fact. And I think what's interesting is like, I think you said it really well. And I like what you said, where, you know, there's so much that an individual does prior to hunting that fulfills their days and their life up to it. And that's what inspires me is that a guy, like what you said, Ryan, is a guy will maybe hunt 2 days a year, spend thousands of dollars in new gear to hunt 2 days a year and look 63 days. The rest of those days, he's looking forward to those 2 days. That's how much people love hunting. That's how much they're passionate about their outdoors. That's what I love about this community. That's what I love about the outdoor recreational space is it's the community at large is the best community in the world. 100%. I will take that to the bank all day and twice on Sunday if I could and tell you that the outdoor community is the best community in the world. And that's why I'm on a mission personally to try and inspire this outdoor community to share other outdoor activities and things that you're doing that go beyond the hunt. Because what people outside of our community and our industry do is that. So when you look at mainstream and you look at what it's doing or how it's being successful, how brands are able to captivate more people, generate, success and do these things, these brands and these communities are built on that. They're showing a multifaceted approach to storytelling. One of the best brands that ever did this, that started in our space and kind of grew beyond it, is Yeti. Yeti and the two brothers started that, and it started out of a necessity from him standing on a styrofoam cooler on the front of a boat and realizing that there's a better way to do this. And they developed Yeti and Yeti coolers. And Yeti started in hook and bullet, fish and hunt as its core foundational industry. And obviously is now a multi-billion-dollar publicly traded entity that is operating in all spaces and places. And what is Yeti so good at doing? Telling stories. And the stories of regular customers, very influential individuals, right, with big followings, all across the board. Yeti is built for the wild and built for you and inspires everyone to take it with them on their adventure. And so I think that is a big part of what's missing in the industry, is individuals not feeling confident or a rite of passage or feeling permission to share what you talked about, the things that you're doing before the hunts, in between the hunts, and some things that may lead up into the hunt.
Well, hunting is, I believe, one of the hardest things I will ever do mentally and physically. Like, you see influencers, they go out, they get these big game animals, and they're beautiful animals. But for me, that's not realistic for me, because I still enjoy doing all these other things. And I still look forward every day to going out in the fall and hunting. But I won't always get something that's big. And it's what you do throughout the year that helps you prepare for that. Also, it helps you stay not burned out. That just makes hunting for me even more fun. And so that's what I love about it.
Yeah, no, I think there's a big opportunity, like you said, for people to kind of share, and people want to see the stuff that's going on behind the scenes. They want to see people grilling their meat, right? They want to see them riding their dirt bike or training for something else, or
hanging out with their family.
Yeah,
as comfortable as you are. Not everybody wants to show everything in your life. I'm not saying like show us everything you're doing, but like everything you just said is like that. I know that's happening. Yeah. I know because of me. So like once we sold a majority stake of Mountain Ops in 2020 to a private equity group, Norwest Venture Partners bought a majority stake of the company. So it reduced our impact in the brand naturally because of our involvement, and out of a necessity for them and their desire to like want to take it over. You learn through that journey, like I did, like when you turn it's like and I haven't even experienced this like others have, but it's like a father whose daughter is goes and gets married to somebody else, and you're still the parent. It's still your daughter, or your son, and you have influence, but you don't have the same anymore, because now they've grown up and now they're with someone else and they're living a life that you are still a part of, but you don't influence it as much as you did when you were the father and the son, or the father and the daughter. And so I don't have it personally, because my oldest is 13. So I haven't experienced any of my kids getting married, but being a business owner and the relationship that you have with your business, which is like a marriage with your partnership and with your brand.
It's a passion.
It's a pure passion. It's a love. It's a love. I love Mountain Ops. It was everything. Unfortunately, I loved it so much that it almost consumed my life to where I started to lose my family. And that's when it became a big problem, was that my priorities were messed up because I became so enamored. And this happens a lot with even some of these icons that I've talked about. I read some of the books and successful people in life, like they become so in love with their business, so in love with their community, so in love with what they're doing, that the closest people and the most meaningful in their life, like their spouse and their children, are sacrificed in that process. So balance is everything in that. But that's what I learned through that journey, was like having that happen in 2020 and experiencing that. That's the empathy that I now have, or probably will have, when I experience in real life, like what it means to see someone else take care of your child.
I think that's probably the best explanation that I've heard, having had a son who's gotten married and a daughter who's gotten married, and got a granddaughter, and we got another one on the way. It makes sense in how you lose that control. Not control necessarily. Well, there's some control, but the influence. You lose the influence, and it's like, do you not remember everything that we did to get you to this point? Right? Whether it's you're talking about your son or daughter, or whether you're talking about a business, I see the parallels perfectly there.
Yeah,
I think that's very well put.
It as a founder, entrepreneur, when you birth a brand, it's your child. That child in its first year is like it's crawling, and you're learning and you're teaching it, and it's teaching you, because as a parent, you're taught by your children. And you teach your parent. It's a mutual exchange of knowledge and experience that's gained through that journey. And as the child grows, like a brand and a business, like in year 2 and 3, like as they begin to walk, as they begin to maybe jog and run, at some point that child gets so mature that they're at a point now where the stewardship that you have over them may change. And that was a real hard thing for me to go through and experience, was the change of that stewardship when we changed it over to different hands. And I'll be completely transparent with you today. And my dad would say the same, like sometimes you watch your kids do things that you're not proud of. And you taught them a certain way. You taught them to do this a certain way. And so Mountain Ops today is not the same Mountain Ops that I built. It's not my same child. It's different. And that the influence that it has now had with its other partner in marriage, now that it's grown up and it's married and it's moved out and it's got its own house, like, and you have little influence over it. I get asked all the time now still. I mean, people ask me, you guys have asked me, everyone asks me, like, what's it like? Are you still involved? It's like, not involved anymore, not influencing at all. I'm like a dad that is somewhat estranged from his child, and I see him a couple times a year at holiday dinners, and we talk, but we don't have anything to do with what they're doing in their life. And so that is what ultimately inspired Black Flag, to be completely honest with you. After selling the majority of Mountain Ops and going through that experience and becoming slightly disenfranchised with the new ownership and the way that they were running our business, both Casey and I, that's when I went back to Casey after I had spent some time in private equity and venture capital, learning how to build funds and invest and diversify money. And I got disenfranchised with that. That wasn't exciting to me. Honestly, working with millionaires and billionaires that whine and cry about returns. If any of you that are my investors, they'll probably hear this podcast. You're annoying. You're super annoying. It's not fun to get calls from you and hear you whine and cry and moan about making money on your money. It's the most entitled industry in the world. Yeah. These successful men and women that complain about the money and principle that their money makes them, and when it doesn't make what they thought or you said, and they complain about that, it was very not inspiring to me. And so I quickly pivoted to call Casey and be like, dude, he was still at Mountain Ops before, running the company as I had stepped out. And he was there for about 18 months after the sell. And I just told Casey, I was like, this was after 2 years. I just told Casey, I was like, bro, I'm not done yet. I want to go do it again, but I want to do it bigger and better than we've ever done it before. I want to take everything that we've learned, everything that we've experienced. I want to build that into a new idea. And naturally, Casey and I are obsessed with pirates. We love pirate lore. We always have. Like, since we were kids, like, we flew the Black Flag when we were kids. I was a pirate from the moment I understood what Halloween was. For the next 6 years of my life, when I had my first costume was, when I chose it, my first costume I chose was a pirate. And for the next 6 years, I was a pirate every year for Halloween. And I watched Treasure Island. I watched Swiss Family Robinsons. I watched like all of these. I listened to books. Like, I love pirates. And Casey the same. We just loved pirates. So when we got together again and said, hey, let's do it again, but how are we going to do it? This time Casey gets credit, because Casey's like, yo, I think I've got the name for the company. And I was like, what is it? And what was funny is Casey was driving a black Cadillac at the time, and his license plate said Black Flag, BLK FLG. And so we're sitting and we're ideating about this thing that we want to create. What is it going to be? What's the name of it going to be? And again, let's do it 6 letters. Let's do it acronym. Let's do it short. Casey comes up with BLK FLG. And we both go to GoDaddy.com, because you always do this. And we type in BLKFLG.com, and it's available for like 2 cents. And we're like, buy it. So we bought that, because I paid about $35,000 for MountainOps.com to buy that from the guy in Idaho.
That was still a pretty good investment.
Great investment. I was glad that I made that call. Casey and my partners weren't necessarily like, dude, we're getmountaiноps.com. Do we really need to drop the get? I'm like, yeah. It's like real estate. Like I want to own the land.
It's like in the social network where it's like drop the on
yeah,
Facebook.
Yeah, I'm the real so-and-so, or
the Facebook.
The Facebook. It's like, it's Facebook. Like you want to own the .com. That's your brand.
Sure.
And that's harder real estate to get now with all the years of .com being live. But
people squatting on domains.
All of them squatting and charging now hundreds of thousands of dollars for domains, right? They'll just sit on them. They're like, hey, I paid $2 a year for this to maintain it. Pay me $200K. Then we sat down and talked. It's like, dude, love that name. So Casey's like, let's call it Black Flag, BLK FLG. We bought the domain. And then we said, okay, if this is going to be a pirate brand themed, and we're going to go full send, full sell. Okay, so iconically, we got to build something really iconic. And so I went to work this time developing the icon and thinking through, okay, how can I build something that embodies and is an emblem of pirate lore past, but will feel and look modern and will be able to correlate that without saying anything. And so as I started thinking about it and started designing, the Jolly Roger is obviously notorious during maritime in the 17th century with the Caribbean pirates being raised with the intention of what their intentions were to signal to other ships at sea what they were going to do, which was, we'll shoot one across your bow, give you fair warning. If you don't surrender and wave a white flag on your side, then our black flag's coming for you. And we're going to come and commandeer what we want and take what we need. And we may take your whole ship. We may take what's inside of it, and we may burn it. We'll do what we want, essentially, if we win this battle. And I always enjoyed and studied at length piracy. And so what's fascinating about pirates and the Black Flag was just that it became a brand and an icon that became notoriously tied to the pirates of those eras, and mostly the golden era of piracy, which is the 17th century, out of Nassau when they were fighting the British, the French, and the Spanish, all three empires at once, and disrupting all three of them at once. We said, this is the perfect name. Let's build a logo. And so on our brand, you'll see, you guys that are watching, if not, you can go to blkflg.com and check us out on social, and you'll see our icon is actually a skull and cross bolts. And so how I came up with the idea for the cross bolts was, one, everybody's used to the cutlass swords and they're used to the bones from the Jolly Roger. But this embodied everything that Casey and I have built and lived by all our lives. We've literally lived a pirate's life for all of our entrepreneurship, truly. Like going mountain ops, we raised the Black Flag as mountain ops and signaled to the entire outdoor industry, especially wilderness athlete, what our intentions were. And we took all the market from them. And then we went about doing business in that way all the way through. I mean, we were intentional pirates, but we were abundant pirates. We were oxymorons. Most people think of pirates as like these guys that are pillaging, raping, and like sacking towns. And there's historicals behind that are true.
Sure.
But what's cool about, if you ever read the book, The Republic of Pirates, it's a collection of diaries and inserts from the pirates and how it started. And the pirates were actually some of the very first and in like free men's state. They were the first ones to abolish slavery, and they were the first ideology that is and did influence the rebellion of pirates to patriots. And so when the pirates were disbanded by the British, they went back into North America, back to where they had come from when they were in the Caribbean. And they went back into society and inspired the revolt to get revenge on the British who had disbanded them and created the Patriot movement that then became America. So patriotism, pirates, all part of the tapestries of America's early history in the 17th century.
You guys are kind of like the Robin Hood of the pirates, right?
100%. We're the Robin. That's the best way it's been said. We are the Robin Hoods of the pirates. Yeah, we take from the rich, but we give to the poor. We as we say, we take everything and we give everything back. There's always like, take nothing. Pirates were branded in a way that the victors told their stories. So the British wrote the stories about pirates. And so they didn't write they wrote a story that wasn't very flattering. But when you look at that, the brand that we built with the crossbolts is intentional about light, energy, speed, disruption, because X marks the spot, right? And so that bolt beneath us represents and embodies all those beliefs in how we build brands, how we build business, how we build communities, and how we build individuals. And then the skull itself doesn't have a jaw. That's intentional. We're men of action. So our words, right, are just words, but our actions will always speak louder than them. And that's how we've always operated with integrity as businessmen and how we built brands and businesses. And so Black Flag is now an embodiment of our beliefs to want to change the narrative or change the idea that one can live a pirate's life in today's world and in a modern way that enriches the crew and helps to inspire others to seek adventure and to empower and fuel those adventure seekers to get revenge on the things in life that take you away from those great adventures.
Well, and I can attest to what it is that you're saying, that you guys are the good guys. You guys are the Robin Hood of the pirates, because as Jaxon and I have started this Hunt Stealth podcast and we're developing our own clothing line, you guys have all been very generous in the sharing of your wealth of knowledge, in connecting us with other individuals to try and get things lined up for the podcast. So you practice what you preach, my brother.
Being an abundant pirate, dude.
Yeah, you guys, you do, right? It's like what you're saying. Like, you guys aren't just talkers; you guys are doers, and I think that's something that I think that's what's going to lead to like this massive success. You guys are already killing it. You guys are just barely really getting started. You launched on October 14th.
Yeah, so like soft launched the brand side of Black Flag at Total Archery Challenge this year with Sean DeGray, paying homage to how we launched Mountain Ops. We launched Mountain Ops first time to the public at Total Archery Challenge at Snowbird with a Home Depot cooler. Rich Coles from Hunters Nation was working for us as a salesman at our marketing company, and we commissioned him to go because he already had a booth there. And basically we got a sticker and we put it on the orange cooler from Home Depot to cover up Home Depot's logo and put Mountain Ops' logo on it. And then he just sat there and handed out sample cups as people came down the mountain. And so when Casey and I wanted to launch Black Flag again, or launch Black Flag, Casey came up with the idea. He's like, dude, let's pay respects and homage to Sean DeGray at Total Archery Challenge, who literally is where we launched the public Mountain Ops all those years ago, 10 years ago. And so we did it again this year. And then, yes, so Revenge, which is what all three of us are drinking now, which is our energy, clarity, focus, energy drink equalizer.
It's amazing, by the way.
It's fantastic. The difference here from what we built then and what we built now is there has been a complete evolution of science in terms of raws, ingredients, compounds that when mixed together create a certain outcome. And so we have developed and built what we know and we not only believe, but we know to be true, which is the best energy drink on the market. And the difference is this has energy and focus matched with clarity. And so why is clarity important? This is why it's important. Energy is stimulant. So to be energized, great, I'm aware. Doesn't mean I'm doing anything. And also to be focused on something, I can be focused on not doing anything, but really, really focused on not doing anything. And so having energy and focus is not enough. And so we wanted to build into it a motivator factor that paired with energy and focus would create motivation and provide clarity to accomplish and to go forward with whatever that goal is.
Clarity of purpose.
Your clarity of purpose. And Casey gets credit for the name of Revenge. And I still remember when he walked into the office and we were coming up and we had formulated this and created it. And we're like, what do we name it? And Casey, in Casey fashion, walks in the office, says to all of us sitting, all the captains that are partners together, sitting down, trying to ideate and write names on the board. He goes, I had a vision last night. I already know what the name is. I'm not asking for a vote. This is what the name of it's going to be. And I'll tell you what I came up with and how I came up with it. And he says, quiz, what's one of the most famous notorious pirate ships in all of pirate lore? We're like, Queen Anne's Revenge, Blackbeard's ship. Okay. So we're going to call it Revenge. And I still remember the chills we all got when I was like, that's the perfect name. Because again, going back to being the good guys, the Robin Hoods, being the abundant pirates, we're not inspiring revenge in the way that vengeance has been defined. We're redefining the way vengeance is taken. Revenge is not taken on the weak. Revenge is not taken on anyone else. It's revenge on all the distractions in your life, all the things that will take you away from the path that is going to be the toughest to travel. Not to take the easy one. That's a distraction. That will take you away from your potential. That will take you away from the greatest life's adventures you could ever have. You should seek the path less traveled in your life. You should seek adversity. You should seek turbulence. You should seek all the things in your life that will grow you and mold you into an adventurous, seeking individual who will live a life of giving back from everything you grow from. And so that's where the inspiration of revenge came from, is let's inspire people to get revenge on all of that and inspire a new way that revenge is and a message and a story around it that's told. And so interesting enough, we're not a supplement company like we were at Mountain as a lifestyle brand. We're so much more than that. What we've developed and designed Black Flag to be is a lifestyle company that we call VXC, which is Venture Experience Capital, or a Venture Experience Company. That's different than traditional VC, because we have a fleet of ships in our harbor and businesses that we have invested in and have ownership in, that all are within the ethos of what the lifestyle is at Black Flag. We also have a product that you can buy directly from us, shirts, hats, merch, and revenge, and we'll continue to build out that line, but that is not what we are. What we are is an incubator and creator to inspire and empower captains and crews to build successful businesses and successful communities, to empower those storytellers to tell their stories the best ways, and to raise a Black Flag on their businesses and in their lives. Our hope with Black Flag is hopefully to empower an individual to raise a Black Flag every day, to be intentional about what you are doing and what you should do to take out of life what you can, because life will give you. That is the thing that I have learned in my life, is that as I've waited for life to give me anything, it's not how it works. You have to go create it. You have to generate it. You have to be open to opportunity. Opportunity will come, but if you are not open to it, or you're not preparing yourself for those opportunities, when they come, you will be not ready to take them on. And so that's where you need to be have a mindset mentality every day when you wake up, to hoist the colors, raise the flag, and make sure it's black. And don't ever consider raising a white one, ever. The only way that we've talked about, and we joke about this, but in terms of maritime terminology, the only way that we will ever raise a white flag is when we transact a brand to another owner. And we'll say, hey, we're not surrendering. We're creating a treaty, and we're allowing you to take the ship from our fleet and then we're going to bring a new one in. And so it's really cool, because we have this fun lifestyle conglomerate that we're building that hopefully will do at its peak just that, through product, through brands, partnerships, relationships. Who is the crew? All of you. Everyone, our partnerships, our ambassadors, our friends, our family, our employees. Anything that touches this is a member and can be a member of the crew. And we want to enrich the crew. That is our mission at Black Flag. And then obviously Casey came up with a fun tagline of built for the thrill. Like, we hope that when you consume this, when you become part of this community, when you join up with us and you join our crew, everything that we're building and everything we're doing will hopefully empower you and thrill you to go live an adventure-seeking life. And that's like Black Flag now. That's now what we're doing.
That's awesome. So, I mean, it sounds to me like what you're trying to do is encourage people to go out and just find success, whatever that is to them.
Find wins.
And guess what? Success is the best revenge.
Yes, 100%, dude. And revenge is best served cold. So it's like 100. That's a perfect caveat. Like that's what I hope. And and I just want to, for all you guys that are listening on this podcast, I appreciate what Ryan said, Jaxon, what you said. It's true. Like, what I love about these guys and what they're doing, and we talked about this before the podcast started. Stealth has a belief of helping those who may in life be very stealthy in terms of how it correlates with the hunt, but in terms of how it correlates with life. And being stealthy in life sometimes is a humble approach to life. It's not bold. It's not loud. Obviously, we're being very bold. We're being very loud. We're not very stealthy at Black Flag, but we don't tend to be. But I think individuals in life tend to adopt a stealthy mentality out of a necessity for survival sometimes, and an inability to feel the confidence to be able to go and share their story. And so what I love about what you two are doing and what Stealth is becoming and what you guys have articulated well and what you're going to accomplish with Stealth is that this platform is going to be a place for all people of all shapes and sizes, of all different lives, to be able to come and have a place to tell their story. And hopefully through that process, become the springboard of inspiration and motivation for them then to go beyond this podcast, this opportunity for them to have a voice and to be able to share it and be able to tell it and go out there and do it every day. and live a humble yet intentional life of stealth that will honestly inspire people of all walks of life, because we all come from, our stories are cool. Like, I think that's what I'm most excited to continue tuning into what you guys are doing. And I hope everybody who's already listening and people who will hear this podcast maybe later on and continue listening to all the others, like, Ryan intends to find and build a brand, as he's told me and as Jackson's told me, that really will help inspire and empower other people to go out and do meaningful things in their life, and whatever that is. Now, something that you said to me once, and you got to say it to me again because I loved it. It was Viking nature, but what do you say about the boats and the row?
Row the boat.
Row the boat, like mindset mentality, like. And what's cool about Vikings, right? Before they attacked land, right? They rode the stealth. They rode with purpose. They rode towards whatever the battle was, and they did it in a way so that they weren't seen or undiscovered, but all the while
Prior to them arriving, yeah.
they rode the boat.
Yeah.
And when you told me that day, dude, that stuck to where I was like, that's a t-shirt that Ryan needs to make. Like, dude, row the boat.
Yeah, well, I said it and I thought that I was like all original, but then after we talked about it, I went back and Googled it, and it was the coach of Minnesota football team.
He says it a lot.
That's their team's like motto, is like row the boat. Everybody has a job, right? Everybody has a purpose, and if we can get everybody in unison and rowing together, like you can go places and arrive at your destination. And that is ultimately what we're trying to do, is help everybody find success in their life, share their stories, and just be happy. I mean, there's so much to be grateful for out there. And yeah, it's kind of fun. It's been fun to sit down and chat with you and to learn more about the origins of Mountain Ops, where you guys are taking Black Flag. I would encourage all of our listeners out there, or if you're watching, please go to Black Flag, support these guys. They are what they say they are. They're really seeking to rise the tide. Rise the tide, to enrich the crew, to be able to ultimately, I mean, we want you to raise the right colors every day in your life. We want you to raise that Black Flag, be intentional. Just like this is a brand and a mark and a mission, every single one of us have our own brand, our own mark, and our own mission as individuals. And so it's important that as a vessel, like a ship, you understand how to control and where to drive that ship with the helm. Make sure that you surround yourself with the right crew that can help you to navigate the seas of your life. Life is a journey, and it's not one to just be taken alone. And I think if I was to pair this to one of the greatest sailors of all, it's actually Jesus Christ. Like, one of the coolest things that I love about Jesus Christ and the correlation of him himself, he was someone who calmed the seas, conquered the seas. He walked the seas. And when I think about the correlation of life and how people are going through it today, and to tie it a little bit back to a big part of who I am in my life, the greatest member of my crew is my Savior. And anyone out there who is struggling, the seas have a mind of their own. You cannot control the seas. That's the thing that as a pirate, a modern pirate, you have to learn quickly, is that the seas have a mind of their own and you cannot control them. All you can control is what you do with the seas that you're given and what's in front of you and how you will navigate those seas. But like any good navigator, the only person in life, in history, that has ever controlled the seas is Christ. And so if you will make sure that you have him a part of your crew and have him a part of your journey, then not only will you never venture alone, but you will always have a quartermaster, a co-captain, a co-pilot, however you want to define your Savior. He will help you navigate the seas of life ahead. And so I hope in turn, as we kind of close this cast together, that as everyone leaves this cast with a bit of my history and my story and the story of many who are part of it, and all the experience and history that I've had and learned in my short runway of a career,
it would be that you lean heavily to a member of your crew who is always there ready to help you, to man the guns, to raise the cells, to swab the decks. Christ washed the feet. He will be there to help you and guide you if you will allow him to help you man the helm of your life. And so I think, again, like just tying it all back, like being intentional about raising a black flag in your life is all about what you intend to do. So be very intentional about what your intentions are. And the more that you will surround yourself with the right people, and the more you develop yourself into a better person, you will attract who you are and you will find your crew. And we hope at Black Flag, we can be a place where people will feel let's call it a haven, right? A pirate's haven or a bay, a harbor. Come here and learn about us and try us out and see if you fit what we're doing. You know, we hope we're not for everyone. We understand that that's every brand and every business in life, but I hope for those who we are, we can do our best to take care of them, inspire them, and help them generate and create the best life they can live.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Well said, Jordan. Been super grateful for the time. Really appreciate the conversation. And I would just add to, I mean, I've had times in my life where things have been awry. And when you put the Savior at the helm, he'll always right the ship and get you back on track and give you the peace that is needed to be able to get through those troubled waters. So I appreciate that. Jaxon?
You know, just the passion, the belief in what you do is just so amazing to hear and like feel. I just hope that we can provide that here on our platform. But I love what you guys are about, you know, love, revenge, everything about it. So
get yours, dude.
Dude, I did. I got it. Tried it.
You're ready to go out there and run through a wall, right? In terms of supplementation, the word pre-workout is a precursor to any work done. So you could define it as a pre-workout. But when you really look at pre-workouts, like pre-workouts are built with more intentionally about really, really high energy, high amounts of caffeine. They use niacin, which kind of creates a flush in the body and kind of a bell ringer to let go and like lift heavy things. Creatine for muscle growth, beta alanine, all these things are usually what compound to make up a true pre-workout. So yeah, we've defined this more so as a true like energy drink in terms of like, we compare, like if I was to put this and say, what would you put next to it? I'd say my competitors are going to be similar products within the powder and shake it, take it space. But I'm going to be in comparison to Red Bull, Monster, Ghost, all these other players that are ready to go. But also some of them have some shake and take products, but it's more on that side. We're actually developing some more products that'll be more for that. And for all the listeners today, as an offering to anybody who's listening, Black Flag wants to offer you guys the opportunity to get a discount on your first try of this stuff. So use the code STEALTH at checkout, and we'll associate a deep discount with it so that when you go to checkout, right now we have a 35 or a 30% off site-wide sale already going on. But I think we're going to add a little bit juice to that discount with the STEALTH code. So if anybody wants to use it, go check us out and use the STEALTH code to get a discount on your first try of Revenge.
And if you hear this and you're not sure where to go, we'll put links in the bio. We'll put the discount code, all those reminders in there. But yeah, anyway, guys, it's been fun. Jordan, again, appreciate the time. Jaxon, thanks for riding shotgun with us here today.
Love it.
Keeping me on track. It's been a good one. Tune in next time. Thanks, guys. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Hunt Stealth Podcast. Hey, I have a favor to ask. If you would and you enjoy this podcast, head on over to wherever you consume it and leave us a review. It's going to help us get this pumped out to more people that might be interested in hearing podcasts like this. Also, right now, we've got 25% off site-wide. So head on over to huntstealth.com, and for every $1 spent, you get entered into the Ultimate Pheasant Hunt Experience giveaway, which is going on now.